Our next speaker, Emily Sadowski, very engaging, amazing woman. I got to get to know her briefly as today's event started. And her book is What is Intuition? Resonance, Connection, and Trusting Intuition on Its Own Terms. Reading through your bio, Emily, I feel I need to go back to school and I need to get myself upgraded. You are setting the bar really, really high. She writes, teaches, coaches smart, sensitive leaders in cultivating their self-awareness and self-compassion so they can connect with inner genius and trust their inner knowing. I can't tell you how many leaders I've been around that put themselves as a title as leader, but have no idea what that actually involves. And I wish every leader would take your course and be able to understand that. So, not to lead this way, but to lead this way, and we need that more in our world. Not only she's teaching it, she's obsessed with leadership and transformative inner work that leads people and cultures to change. Her work sits at the intersection of spirituality, meaning-making, existentialism, and collective liberation. She's like your most woo professor, but your least woo self-development mentor. I love that. I actually read that to myself like 10 times, and very, very well said. Her book is What is Intuition? Presenting a visionary framework for authorizing intuition as a trustworthy way of knowing in service of relating to our uncertain world in nourishing, ethical ways. Wow. Well said. Can't wait to hear you say it. Okay, and come on up.
Okay, thank you.
We got Emily.
I'm gonna maybe use the mic. I don't know.
It's available if you want to. It's yours.
What does it sound like in the mic? Any different? Maybe it's not even on.
Might not be on.
How about now? Yeah? Okay, sometimes it's just an accessibility thing. I like when people can hear me. Hi, I'm Emily. I prepared some notes. I don't trust my own memory anymore. And I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm thrilled, actually, to meet lots of other people. I know that our books are very, very different from each other, and that is very exciting. And also our work in the world, whatever that is. Not only what we're doing from here on, but also like what brought us to our writing in the first place. So please come check out my book. It's just up the stairs. It's yellow and blue. It's yellow and blue on purpose because I wanted it to appeal to people who are reading self-development books in corporate culture, in coaching culture, as opposed to people who are reading books, and I mean this with like so much love, in spaces like this, because I'm really aiming to bridge the ideas in my book and bring them to people who wouldn't necessarily find themselves already in these kinds of spaces. So yeah, that's a little bit, you'll see my book. I don't know about you, but I never heard about intuition growing up. Like, I never knew that it existed. I never knew that it was a thing. Nobody ever talked to me about intuition or gut feelings or in any capacity. Without disrespect to my family, it just wasn't available or like something that we thought about. Nobody credited it for things that they knew. And so I never understood that it was something that I could also be. But at some point in my life, as like a seeker, somebody born with just an innate curiosity about consciousness and existence, I found my way to basically a genre of book, a kind of book that was teaching people how to develop their intuition. I just have this core memory now. It was on a housemate's bookshelf, a book by like a very famous teacher of this stuff, Sonia Choquette, and I read that book literally in an afternoon. I was like, what is this? I wanted it, and I related to it, and then I was kind of mad, like, why hadn't I ever heard of this before? So, long story short, I have been an academic. I've been, in school a lot. I've been studying education and leadership and social justice and education, and yes, how people change, but also how cultures change to become better, ultimately, right? And so I went into a PhD program in education, and I was really looking at why had not only my family had never taught me about intuition, but my education had definitely never introduced this idea. So I was digging and looking for intuition anywhere that I could find it. I did end up finding it here and there. And the way that people were defining intuition there was as something that was like definitely not woo, okay? So it was like fast thinking, or it had an explanation as something that was rational. Like, don't worry, it's just normal, it's just something that, you know, is happening behind the scenes of your thinking, a very analytic explanation for what intuition was. And that did not accord. It wasn't the same as what I was seeing in these New Age books that were teaching people how to develop their intuition, and that was really interesting for me. So I kind of undertook this very long-term study to find out, what do we believe intuition is, and why does that matter? So what is the framework, the worldview, the analysis, the beliefs that we have that show us what we think intuition is? Is it the voice of God? Is it the voice of angels? Is it something that is just happening in our brain that we could probably see on a brain scan? I also didn't believe that you have to believe in certain things to be intuitive. Like, if I don't believe in angels, that shouldn't prevent me from having a connection to intuition. So again, always trying to bridge. And I realized that intuition only makes sense to me, using an understanding of consciousness, truth, self, knowledge, the experience of intuition, like bridging all these things. And what we get is a survey, which you'll see in the book, of intuitive experience itself. So starting with what it feels like to have an intuitive experience. And then we walk through a quantum akashic framework where intuition makes sense. It's a relationship of resonance and connection that relies on us, a knower, who's prepared to be intuitive, who is receptive and aware of their awareness, basically. And for me, what that also ended up doing, because I'm an educator and I'm interested in the inner work that people can do to change, is it points to a coherent program of practice. So the program of practice is also in the book. It's not a how-to book, it's really a why-to book, like why we should do this. But the framework is our mindset, so what we believe intuition is, the stories we're telling ourselves about not only who we are and what we can do, but what everything is, the metaphysics, basically. So mindset, awareness, and that means like being receptive, having ourselves prepared to be receptive to intuitive information, being in a flow state, meditation and contemplative practice. And the third piece is discernment. So once we receive intuitive information, first of all, do we know how to make sense of it? And also, what do we do with it? And if anything. And so it's really a practice of authority and feeling like we have agency in the world to act on our intuition, and also to claim our intuition, because actually it is a valid way of knowing. And that's also part of what I'm doing in the book. So now I teach and mentor others to connect with their intuition based on who they are and how they are. A lot of self-awareness practice. And I'm about to start an 8-month program of living intuition, so living an intuitive life. Basically, I'm not really talking about psychic stuff, although psychic stuff too, but really just being in touch with ourselves, our lives, and our context to make excellent choices and like be authentic. So the book also contains, I want to mention, a discussion guide. So if you're interested in these kinds of ideas about consciousness and quantum reality, there's some excellent questions you can download at its website, whatisintuition.ca. There's also a practice guide there, although I feel like in this room I might be talking to people who are already aware of some of the practices that you can do to connect with your intuition. I am working on a second book. It's more about the practices. It's not only about the specific practices you can do, but it's about a life of intentional practice and what it means to be invested in self-development. Yeah, I hope it's going to be out next fall. I have been self-publishing. I'd love to talk to anyone who has been on the self-publishing journey, and we can commiserate together. Yeah, so the secret agenda of What is Intuition is to talk about consciousness, entanglement, uncertainty, non-duality, and the ways that we're all connected, and the ways that we affect and are affected by the multidimensional living systems that we're all part of. As I write in the conclusion, our world needs this now, both the perspective and the inner work that brings about a more intuitive way of living in the world. So that's my talk. Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you more.